Hey everyone, I recently made this Mimikyu cosplay and I kind of wanted to share with everyone how I made it. So materials wise, had a lot of stuff at home already, but I bought 3 yards of yellow fleece from Joann's. It was a really weird name. It was called like Pale Banana or something like that. And the rest I had at home and I kind of just like went with it. I had some fleece, some fabric, uh, some thread, and like a button. I wouldn't say it's all necessary because everyone can take this pattern and kind of do what you want with it, but this is what I used. So, because I had only 3 yards of fabric, I cut out 2 quarter circles and 1 half circle, but I kind of wanted 4 yards to make 2 half circles, but I kind of just went with it, I guess. I ended up sewing all those pieces together at the very beginning without thinking, and so I made those 2 quarters sewn together, that seam. I made that seam the front so I could use it as like a reference for where I wanted to place everything else. I guess it was just easier that way. So from there, because this is the first time I actually started filming the process, I cut out this little oval, and I cut a tiny little slit in that front seam that I said I had, and then I started pinning together all of the seam allowance to create like a cleaner look at the bottom. And I'm just gonna point out right now that I am a novice. I've never actually made anything from scratch before, so this is the first one. And if you check carefully, I put out the entire circle, and then I realized that none of the seams were actually the same size, so I had to repin everything and go around. So I'm sorry ahead of time for the mess I'm about to create. So all I did next was sew the entire bottom, mainly because the pins were stabbing me a bunch and I didn't want to work without getting rid of them. And I used a white thread and a line stitch, mainly because I didn't have the right shade of yellow, and the white blended in pretty well. And the line stitch was just like simple enough, and I didn't need anything to be too complicated. So from here, I just traced out a random pattern that I had lying around to this black cotton. And the reason I'm using it is because one, it's dense, so it gives a good shape to the hood itself. And two, it prevents my hair from getting covered in fleece. Um, so it was just like a nice addition. You obviously don't have to do this if you don't want to. Um, just make sure that you make a hood the size that you want, because whatever I say is definitely not God. You can just work with whatever you want. From here, I'm going to transfer the pattern to this fleece, and because I kind of didn't have enough, I had to make the hood smaller than anticipated, which bummed me out, but if you buy extra fleece, this wouldn't be an issue. I probably should have bought some extra, but I didn't think ahead of what I was doing. Now I'm just going to sew each of the individual hoods together, so the yellow one first and then the black one after, um, because I don't want them to be fully connected, because then I can't sew the face onto the thing without kind of crumpling up the hood itself. Um, so I'm just sewing all of the seams together and then pinning the front so that I can work with the shape I want. And from there, I don't even remember what I did after that, but this is a line stitch. I just picked whatever the easiest stitch was, and I kind of only used that, to be honest. It was easier. So after sewing the yellow hood, I had to switch out the thread so I could sew the black hood. And my main issue with this one was that it wasn't actually hard to sew, though the fabric was denser than I expected. but I should have made the black hood smaller because pinning the two hoods together made it like kind of difficult, I guess. Pinning these two together was actually probably one of the hardest parts because they didn't fit together very well, which I wasn't fully aware of why, so I got really frustrated and had to do it over and over again. But I did end up pinning them together, and I did end up sewing the two together using a ladder stitch right at the edge because I thought it ended up looking better, I guess. So I have to sew the neck and the hood together. And if you noticed in the last like really short clip, the the like bottom of the hood was not really matching up together. So I did end up folding over that piece again using the excess bottom of the hood, and I just like folded it over so it would look cleaner. It doesn't actually contribute all that much to the actual pattern, but it was bothering me a lot, so I just decided to cover up it because the black cotton seems to like fall apart a lot easier. So I just redid it and stuff. So because I'm putting a button on this, I had to sew a buttonhole into the base of the neck where it came together, and I had to pick out a button. So I just used a white button because it kind of blended in pretty well, and I used white thread again. I did make a mistake sewing the buttonhole, but we're gonna ignore that and pretend that I did well. So now that the base is fully done, the base and the hood, I just decided to show off the progress. It currently doesn't have the face on the stomach, and it doesn't have the ears or the face on the hood. So I just cut out a random shape for the ears, this yellow and black pattern. I pinned one black to each yellow, and then I pinned those together and sewed them together. Flipping them inside out and just checking if they're actually like fully sewn together is kind of important because I did have a hole in one of mine. Um, when your ears are fully sewn together, you just have to go ahead and stuff them. I did have stuffing lying around in a box in the basement, so I used that, but you can also use cotton balls or like extra fabric or whatever you want. You can also just not stuff them because they don't really have to be that thick, I guess. From here, I just checked where I wanted to put them on the hood itself. So I just tried them out and then I pinned the in like I just put pins in the places that I wanted them to be at the end. Uh, I this is just a preference, but I decided to sew the bottom of the ears together just because I didn't want any risk of stuffing falling out during like photo shoots and stuff. But that's also just a preference. You don't actually have to do it. And then I just sewed it to the hood using the placemarks where I put them. I cut out these big ovals for the eyes on the bottom of the costume. And I also used a ladder stitch on this and I hand stitched it mainly because I wanted the eyes to kind of like bulk out a little bit. And in a second, you're not going to be able to see any work that I'm actually doing, so I'm just going to fast forward through that. Sorry. The last thing you have to do is the face, and what I did is I just cut out these black circles and these red circles, and then a random mouth shape. Um, and the circles themselves, in order to cut them like that, I cut out the full circle, and then I just cut out like individual pieces to make them look more fake. I just hand sewed everything, but I made sure that I didn't sew anything to the black part of the hood because I knew that that was going to bunch up the inside, and I didn't want that. It was just gonna feel weird. So this is the final product. It actually looks a little awkward on the dress form, but it looks pretty good in real life. I just put a little underskirt underneath and cut out a random stick shape to hold for a prop. But in the end, it turned out a lot better than I expected. So anyway, thank you for watching, and if you decide to make this for yourself, hit me up on any of my social media. I'd love to see what you end up creating.